home bakers, it's Jack here, bakeWithJack.co.uk, bringing you your weekly bread making tip every single Thursday. And this week, let's talk about those essential pieces of kit that you need to make your first loaf of bread at home. Roll that theme tune. Hello there and welcome back to the Bake with Jack YouTube channel, where I'm dedicating January 2020 to all you first timers out there. Beginner bread makers, keen home bakers, it's time to crack it well and truly and make bread your new hobby of the new year. We've spoken about why it's a great time to start making your own bread. We've spoken about my top tips for beginners. And before we hit next week's video, the start to finish simple loaf of bread tutorial, this week we're going to go through the essential pieces of kit that you need in your kitchen to make your very own first loaf of bread. You can go all out buying stuff for your new home baking hobby. The amount of stuff available is literally limitless. But in this video, we're not going to talk about banneton baskets and grignettes and baking stones. All that stuff comes later on. Today, I'm focused on you beginners, and I'm splitting these bits and bobs into two categories that I've rather cleverly named: the 8 things that you need and the 5 other things that might be handy. If this video helps you out, then let me know by clicking that thumbs up button. And yes, you might be surprised to hear that some of these bits and bobs are available in the Bake with Jack online shop. Visit bakewithjack.co.uk/shop and I'll ship your bits and bobs to you wherever you are in the planet. Let's go. Okay, first up, let's talk about essentials, the things that you need, the things that I wouldn't be without. And it's not a lot of stuff, but everything here is important and everything here has its place. The dough scraper. Here we have the rather lovely Bake with Jack dough scraper that loads of you have got in your homes already. It's got 2 straight edges for cutting and cleaning, 1 curved edge for mixing, scooping out the bowl. And as nice as it looks, this logo isn't here just for fun, you know. It's raised up, that gives you grip so it doesn't slip about in your fingers. You don't have to squeeze it so much and you won't get that sort of thumb fatigue thing going on. I use these a lot, literally for everything you may have seen in videos before, and you'll certainly see in next week's loaf tutorial video. If I'm ever without one, I find it a little bit difficult to function. I'll use a credit card or something. I need something for scraping and lifting. It's quite nice to have 2, because when you're doing messy things like ciabattas and brioche later down the line, you can use one to scrape off your scraper and keep it nice and clean. Dough scrapers, what you need. Large mixing bowls. I use these bowls for a few reasons. They are cheap, they are lightweight, and they're really thin, meaning they stack nicely in the cupboard, don't take up too much space. I keep them all the same size, otherwise it stresses me out. There's none of this what size bowl do I need stress, or trying to slide a big one out from underneath a pile of smaller ones. Seriously, I can't cope with that sort of thing in a kitchen. Let's keep it easy. Also, as I mentioned in the video about cleaning up the mess, they're really easy to clean because they're plastic. Just let the dough dry out, bend the bowl, scrape it with your scraper, and all the mess will just fall out nice and easily. Large mixing bowls. Proving cloths, we've spoken about these before. You're going to need something to cover your dough with, and I use these rather splendid Bake with Jack proving cloths. They're just simple, natural cotton cloths that I like to keep separate from all my tea towels. Free from fragrance detergent, they don't smell soapy, because the smell will get into your bread dough, and when it does, it's not very nice. Also, I like to use these as a couche by pleating them up for baguettes, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Clean, fragrance-free cloths are what you need. A water jug, a jug for water. That's it really. Don't stress out about measurements up the side, you don't need them, and the reason is that you'll see in next week is that we measure our water in grams anyway, which is why we need a nice set of scales, not cups. Get some scales and measure in grams. Electric ones like this are far more accurate than old school ones, the ones on a balance with the weights, or the ones with a dial with a spring inside. Yes, you need to replace the batteries every once in a while, but if you're making fresh bread once a week, using your scales around 5 minutes at a time, you make sure you turn it off after you use it every time. By my calculations, it will last for approximately ages. For the simplest of recipes, you can measure everything straight into your bowl on top of your scales like this, which is lovely. But get scales before you start. If you're used to cups, don't just go ahead with cups thinking, oh, I'll just Google the conversion rate, because it doesn't work like that. You can't just straight up swap weight measurements into volume. It doesn't make sense. Stuff gets lost in translation. Get electric scales measuring your stuff in weight in grams. A nice baking tray like this one, or a loaf tin like this. You probably already have a tray in the kitchen, which is fine for freestanding bloomers, but on this occasion for beginners, I'd always recommend baking your first loaf in a tin, because you can get away with more error that way when you're shaping and still make an epic loaf. On a tray, you need to be a little bit more precise when shaping so that it holds up under its own weight as it stands alone while it puffs up, right? But for a loaf in a tin, it has support either side, and it will only ever rise up regardless of any shaping mishaps. If you are using a tray, you're going to need a roll of parchment paper, and let me repeat, parchment paper, not greaseproof paper. Greaseproof paper sticks like crazy, and yes, they are two different things, a tray or a tin. And if you're using a tray, you need parchment paper. Next up, you need, and you might have guessed it already, an oven. Here's my oven here. Do you like that? It's a paper one. You need an oven to bake your bread inside. Mine is electric fan, but I've been hosting bread making courses in other people's homes for 6.5 years. And just as we have done in the past, you can make great bread in all types of ovens. You might need to adjust the baking temperature all the time. Sometimes you need to flip a loaf upside down for a bit to finish off, but it can be done. And if you like, I can do another video about oven types, how to use them to your full potential for bread. Let me know in the comments if you like that video. Lastly, a bread knife is super important. Once your triumphant loaf has emerged from the oven and you've patiently allowed it to cool down, don't chunk it up into door wedges or squash it flat with a rubbish knife. Get yourself a long serrated knife, preferably curved, like this one, and you're going to need obviously a chopping board to go with it. So lastly, you need a nice bread knife, chopping board, wooden if you can. You'll still need some practice with a knife like this to get your slices bang on, but you'll be in a much better position to get started. It'd be such a shame to go through all this, make a nice loaf of bread and then ruin it right at the end with a dodgy knife. If you have these 8 pieces of kit in your kitchen at home, then you're all set to make amazing bread. However, there are a few things that you might find handy. Now, I don't want anything to put you off embarking on your first loaf journey. So if you start watching this next part and start thinking to yourself, hey, maybe I won't even bother in the first place, then skip this bit to the end of the video here. Hunt down those 8 bits and bobs we've already spoken about and sit tight waiting for next week's tutorial video. A deep tray and a kettle. Bread bakers make a lot of noise about baking bread with steam, and they're quite right to do so because it's a total game changer. But if it seems a little bit overwhelming at this stage, don't worry about it. It's possible to make bread without it. You might want to use it later on. When you start getting under your fingers, you might want to introduce a bit of the steam at a later date. But if you do want to introduce steam into your oven at home, you'll need a deep roasting tray. Use an old one because it's probably going to get ruined, and an embarrassingly shoddy looking diabolical excuse for a kettle like mine. I'm sorry, apologies, that's awful. There's nothing like posting a video of your kettle out to the world to bring your attention to the fact that it's probably time for an upgrade. I'm not going to leave that there. I'm embarrassed myself. An apron. It might sound silly and a nice excuse to talk about the rather lovely Bake with Jack apron available to purchase in the Bake with Jack shop, but there's something nice about getting dressed for the job at hand. And to be quite honest with you, I wear this old one from my old restaurant days with holes in it because I love it. But obviously we need to protect our clothes from dough, because once that gluten takes hold on your jumper, it's going to be hard to get off, even in the washing machine. It probably won't come off. But there's something almost ceremonious, I feel, about putting on your apron, tying it up, getting ready, getting grounded, you know, ready to embark on your bread making journey. It's a nice feeling of preparation before you begin that I feel goes unnoticed, you know. I like it. A pencil and a piece of paper or a notepad like this one. This is what I use. If you truly want to learn, you'll need a way to track your progress and a way to record your results. That's why it's handy to write down your recipe, write down the temperature of the day, write your timings down like we mentioned last week, and most important of all, make down a note of what the bread was like at the end. It's so often forgotten, but make a note of what it was like, whether you liked it or not, and then you've got something to go by next time. If there are any failures, anything you want to tweak and adjust, you can make that progress next time if you made a record of the last one. Pencil and paper, hugely underrated. Thermometers are nice. I use thermometers literally all the time, one for the room and one for the water, and it's probably more out of habit because it's quite crucial. When I'm hosting a course, I need to know the temperature so I know what to expect from the dough on the day. I need to know how quickly stuff's going to rise. I need to know what to expect basically, and I've begun to include the temperature of my kitchen in all the recipes on my blog. It's quite handy to know because you'll know why things might be puffing up a little bit slower or faster than mine. You'll start to recognize the speed of the puff and learn to instinctively adapt what you're doing to the temperature of your room on the day. This one's getting a little bit old, as you can see. It's always 20 degrees in my house, look. Thermometers can be useful if you want to know your temperatures. A nice cooling rack. I was in two minds about what category to put this in because it is essential to cool your loaf, but you can get away without using a rack if you don't have one. You can lean your loaf up against something, or you can use like an oven shelf out of the oven that you're not using or something like that. It's nice to have the right tool for the job, but if you don't have one and you don't want to get one, you can get away without one. A cooling rack. And there it is on my mission, my constant mission to remove barriers between you and making amazing bread at home. I hope this rather short shopping list of bits and bobs has been helpful, but most importantly, not too overwhelming. Don't forget, some of the essential things that you need are available at the Bakery Jack online shop. If you'd like to purchase some bits and bobs there, you can do it. I'll leave a link underneath. If you are already making bread at home and there's an essential piece of kit that you can't be without, let me know what that thing is in the comments box underneath. And if you enjoyed this video, click the thumbs up button to let me know. Next week, we'll be back with a full, simple loaf of bread start to finish tutorial. And if you'd like to stick around for that, click subscribe and you won't miss out. I look forward to seeing you here next week for another weekly bread making tip. Bye-bye.